Hello and welcome to my first Infinity the Game tournament report. Last weekend, I went to my first major event, the German satellite called German Championship or Deutsche Meisterschaft in German, which is a weird name to be honest, since it implies some sort of elite event, while obviously everyone who wants to go is allowed to go, myself included, who is not a champion. And yet I went to the championship. I was pretty excited. I had only ever been to small events before, and I was really curious how my Tohaa would perform in a 5 round event. The tournament was held in Mannheim, right next to the Rhine. This is the view from the location. That is not the location that you're looking at where we played in, but still, it was really cool. We were basically able to look at the boats while we were playing. Here are a couple more pictures from the convention. There were a couple amazing tables. One of them you can see right here, for example, the Venice table. The table that you can see right up here, the one in the very front, is the one that won best table as well. And there's even a table for me, but it's nothing special, so I'm not going to show it. Anyway, the mission lineup for this tournament was provisioning, infection, and highly classified on day 1, and zone of interest and supremacy on day 2. You might have only very recently heard of zone of interest because it's a mission from the new ITS 17 mission set. For that reason, us participants also didn't know about the mission until about a week before the tournament. That meant that we were able to practice only for 4 out of those 5 missions in advance, with the last mission having been left blank up until, like I said, basically a week before the tournament. As for the other missions, I don't think I need to introduce provisioning anymore. It's been known for a while now, and supremacy and highly classified need no introduction either. As for infection, that's a custom mission written by our local Munich War Corps, and it's quite something. But to keep this video somewhat short, I will ask you to refer to my previous video where I talk about this mission in detail. The gist is you need to infect your opponent with the nanovirus while trying not to get infected yourself, which results in a very interesting mechanic where you want to infect enemy troopers but not necessarily kill them, since the player who has fewer infected in a non-null state on the board at the end of the turn scores points. I really liked the mission lineup. I thought it was a good mix of new and interesting missions mixed in with some classics, in a way that ensured that our brains wouldn't be completely fried going into day 2 and especially the last mission. Supremacy as the last mission just meant that basically for everyone who's been playing Infinity for a while, they had a little bit less mental load going into the last mission. As for my choice of faction, it's actually pretty easy. Tohaa are, in my opinion, still one of the most resilient factions in the game, as well as one of the factions that I personally just have the most experience with. And in a tournament where it's just too easy to get screwed over by the dice, that extra level of resilience is something that I felt would help honestly mediocre player like me actually stand a chance against all of the heavyweights that I expected to be there. As it would turn out, however, the dice were in fact very kind to me, but let's not spoil everything right now. Instead, let's look at the lists that I brought first. I usually write my Tohaa lists tailored to the missions for a tournament, since Tohaa are quite resilient against pretty much any faction, and so I feel like I can allow myself to write mission specific. In this case, I figured that provisioning and infection would be the 2 missions that benefited the most from having fast units in my lists, while highly classified and supremacy both required me to bring hackers, which I otherwise try to avoid with Tohaa. Since we didn't know the last mission until a couple days before the satellite, I didn't get to test it. When we finally knew the mission, Zone of Interest, I decided that I would make it matchup dependent which list of the 2 I would choose. If I had to go up against a middle of the pack or low hacking faction, I would bring my hacking list, since you have to put hackers in those zones of interest. But if I were facing a hacking dominance faction like Bakunin or OSS or Combined Army, I would leave my hackers at home instead of just sacrificing them unnecessarily. As for my list construct in general, I am a big believer in the Sukiul Sniper, together with two Kailtar in a Harris, and a Sukiul HMG in a duo with a Macau. I know people swear on the Sukiul missile launcher as their premium ARO piece, but I personally subscribe to the philosophy of trying to waste as many orders of my opponent in ARO rather than making as much damage as possible. And the sniper simply has the better range bands. He's also cheaper, which allows me more flexibility when building my lists. As for the Kailtar, in my opinion, the biggest strength left to Tohaa in N5 is their resilience. Endgame has been nerfed quite a lot, and HI is cheap across the board, so having 2 wounds and a Takul isn't what makes Tohaa as much as it used to be. Having symbiomates, on the other hand, still is. And so I rarely leave the house without 3 of them. So I take the Kailtar chain of command with 2 symbiomates and the cheapest Kailtar with the symbiom bomb and a symbiomate pretty much every time. The Sukiul HMG is a staple for me simply because it's kind of the only reliable long range, high burst, high damage weapon outside maybe the Gorgos in the faction. And I don't own a Gorgos. I know people swear on the Drow AP marksman rifle as well, but for me, giving up 3 points of mimetism and armor piercing for better range, higher burst, and bigger lethality of my weapon against low armor models specifically, while also paying less than for the Drow, I don't know. So far, it wins out for me every time. Then, because my Sukiul HMG needs some visibility control, she's always stapled to a single Macau. Gone are the days where I brought 2 Macau in every list, but I still don't leave the house with at least 1. It's still the only cheap source of decent CC, as well as Eclipse grenades and a heavy flamethrower. So that's my basic triad setup for basically all of my Tohaa lists. Other staples, apart from link teams, include, of course, the Delegate. Also a mix of Chaksa Auxilias and Kaori Mine Layers, depending on how many points I have left over and the classified burden, since Kaori especially are just good backup classified units with their MSV. Finally, the Takyu Lieutenant is also still in every list of mine. Yes, Endgame has kind of been downgraded to a weapon of opportunity more than anything else these days, but Eclipse and the 2 additional Lieutenant orders still mean that there's always something I can do in my second group, and in a clutch, my Takyu has just killed more things with her combi rifle than is really decent. All in all, that means that about 10 of my unit slots are basically the same in all of my Tohaa lists, leaving the other 5 to 6 slots to tailor the list to specific needs. And so what we see here in this first list for provisioning and infection is my decision to focus on speed and forward observers. Provisioning, the version before ITS 17, still has or had a forward observer bonus for getting the boxes out of the console. And that is the reason why, for the first time ever, I'm actually playing a co-tile. I have the original co-tile model. It is incredibly painted by a friend of mine, Adam. And so far, it has always proxied as something else, and I was really happy to finally put it on the table as an actual co-tile. The reason, he has super jump, and super jump is good, and that means I have an 8-4 moving forward observer with 2 wounds and a marker state, and that just seemed like the perfect piece for provisioning, as well as a nice backup piece for infection. Also, if I'm reading the Hollow Echo rules correctly, I don't have to put all 3 Hollow Echoes on the table at the start of the game. I can also just place 2. And then for that reason, when it comes to how I'm playing the co-tile, I decided to disguise him as 2 Chaksa Auxilia. Since I already have 1 Chaksa Auxilia in the list, as well as one hidden deployed trooper, which we will talk about in a second, meaning that having 3 Chaksa on the board is actually kind of realistic. There are Tohaa lists with 3 Chaksa, and my opponent would actually see 15 troopers on the board at the end of my deployment, and that to me seemed like the only really believable setup that might actually fool my opponent about the Kotile's presence. The second unusual piece, and the reason I can play it this way, is the Calypsos Forward Observer. It's a second forward observer for that second box in provisioning that is hidden deployed and therefore can just pop out when I need her, which is very handy. And in infection, she is safe from being infected until I bring her on the table, which would also be nice. Because I might have to snatch a box from my opponent as well as be able to infect something far away, there's also a Kirile Preceptor in here with a single Surla Symbiobeast. I would have loved to take both beasts, but I really only had points for one. He's not much more than that. He's a second CC unit in case I need to Rambo something in CC, and it's just super fast. And I feel like both of those missions needed as much fast stuff as Tohaa could bring. Since there's also a big chance that my opponent will try and snatch my boxes from me in provisioning or go on a rampage infecting my stuff in infection, I figured that 2 Cowrie Mine Layers might also be reasonable here, so I have them as DC's defenders for those 2 missions. That only leaves room for 1 Chaksa, but I decided that would be enough for the reasons that I already explained when I was talking about the Kotile as well. I also only have 1 Takul in this list, so I only would have 1 unit that really needed reloading anyway. Finally, the last 2 extra pieces in here are the Greif Operator and a Motorized Bounty Hunter. I talked about the idea behind these 2 pieces in infection, especially in my last battle report when I played this mission, so check that out because I don't want to go into the entire detail here. But the gist is, if I go first, I will have the Bounty Hunter as one of my infected pieces at the start of the game, then run it all the way through the exclusion zone and either have it die and infect my Greif automatically, or infect pieces by herself, or infect the Greif, and then I have 2 pieces that I can infect the opponent with. That would actually work out quite well at the tournament, but we'll get there. My Greif automatically, or infect pieces by herself, or infect the Greif, and then I have 2 pieces that I can infect the opponent with. That would actually work out quite well at the tournament, but we'll get there. My second list is basically just a highly classified list, which, solely on the back that I am bringing hackers for highly classified anyway, can also really play well into Supremacy, because that mission also has a hacker bonus. So what we added here instead of the stuff that's in the previous list is 2 hackers actually, a War Driver and a Karma Ale hacker. None of those units are great hackers, but the ability to have 1 hacker on each side of the board in Supremacy to reliably press those buttons, I felt was just as nice as the redundancy in highly classified should 1 hacker die early and there are hacking classifieds on the table. And in fact, it would turn out to be incredibly clutch to have a second hacker in that mission, since, in fact, my first hacker would die during my opponent's first turn, and I only managed to do the classifieds that I did because I brought that second Karma Ale hacker. To make all that work, we also downgraded the 2 Cowrie to 2 Chaksa Auxilia, and switched out the Greif and the Kotile and the Kirile for a second Takul, the Chain of Command version with the viral combi rifle in fact, because I wanted to bring some viral at least, just in case I would be going up in against Ariadna or anything else. I actually did the math recently and realized that viral is still incredibly powerful, and so this time I just decided to splash those 6 extra points and get myself a viral combi rifle Takul Chain of Command. Apart from him, we also have a Kozuil Engineer and a Gao Tarsos. I have sung the praises of the God Tarsus before, and in Highly Classified, it's an incredibly useful piece. He's medium infantry, a durable paramedic that's incredibly mobile and starts off the board, and I can just bring it in whenever I want to. She would actually be worth her weight in gold in 2 out of the 3 missions that I ended up playing this list in. The other reason I brought a second Takul is to have a chain of command model in case there's a classified that needs one that is a little bit more mobile than my Kailtar chain of command in group 2 that is kind of stuck to the Sukiul Haris. And also, so I would have a basis for another triad where I could stick the Kozuil in. And the Kozuil is there because it's just one of the most cost-effective engineers in the game, and I need an engineer for Highly Classified, and it's just a good unit in itself. 2 wounds for a boarding shotgun Panzerfaust engineer with a deactivator for 20 points. Yes, please. And that's it. Those are my 2 lists. Now let's look at the first game. All right. My first game was against Simon, aka Killswitch, who played Hassassin Baram. When he told me that, I was already pretty respectful. And he was so kind to send me his list code after the tournament. So let's have a look at his list. Not that I can really go into detail on it or have incredibly intelligent things to say about it because I don't play assassins and I don't really know a lot about them. But just so everyone knows what's on the table and what's going to be relevant, basically the big things are a Haris of a Mujib heavy rocket launcher, Layla Sharif, and a Gulam NCO. A duo of the Lazik BS Attack AP Viral Marksman Rifle and the Govat Hacker. 2 Barits, both forward observers, because I guess forward observer bonuses are relevant in this mission. Al Jabel, and then an Ayar, but not the one with +1 burst and emitter, but the one with the disco baller, which would be very relevant. There is 1 Mutawiya, there is a Camille remote to reload the IR. And then in group 2, we have just 1 Dailami and a Juge mine layer with Flammenspeer and 2 EM mines, a Farzan mine layer with viral mines, and a Rajik that I would not be aware that might even be in the list until the very end of the game. And so, yeah, I guess it's a cool list. I have no idea if this is a good assassin list or not. It felt pretty good for this mission with the disco ballers and the hackers and the forward observers and everything. Although, as it would turn out, he would actually never use the forward observers. He would do all his button pressing with other specialists. I would play my provisioning list into this. We roll off on this gorgeous table. Simon wins the lieutenant role and decides to go first. Now, before we continue, just another quick disclaimer. These will be much quicker battle reports than my other ones because I'm actually planning on going through all 5 games in this video, and so I will not go into every single detail. I will just paint the broad strokes of everything, and I will also try something new, which is painting on the screen as we go. I do not have the perfect setup for this, so it might be kind of janky, but I just figured that would be quicker than anything else. So just to understand how this table works, we're playing provisioning, so we have these radial deployment zones, and I would turn out to have this deployment zone, and my opponent would have this deployment zone, roughly. He would deploy his IR back here, and his Lazik and his Govat Hacker here. His Mujib Haris would be around here. Then we have the Mutawiya up here on the bridge. His 2 Farzans, I think, somewhere here. And I think these are the most important things. Al Jabel would reserve deploy in here in the objective room over here. I love how my MacBook software is just making these shapes out of the things I draw, but never mind. And the 3 objectives would actually be in here in the objective room, in here, the middle, and then over here. My deployment zone actually looks like this. I have my Sukyo sniper up here. I have my Kotile actually would be, no, my Kotile is actually up here on the roof. Those two chucks are on my Kotile. My Takul lieutenant would be over here. I have a Kaori positioned up here behind this building or in front of this building. You can see the mine, that little, and those would be the most important pieces. My Clipsos would actually be hidden deployed right next to this objective over here as well. And so we start the game, and what actually happens is that my opponent just pulls a Tohaa move on me, which is basically to just do the same thing that I would do if I had gone first and just throw Eclipse. His IR reveals and throws a disco baller here and then a disco baller here. Then his duo of Lazik and Govat just move up and press the button. And then the IR also moves up and press the button. And so he just takes 2 boxes out of the middle console. And then they just walk all the way back over here and just basically hide behind these 2 big buildings. And that's basically his entire first turn. He doesn't really do anything else. I don't think he actually even uses his second combat group. I'm not sure about that. So my first turn, what happens is that I basically just throw Eclipse with my Takyu lieutenant into the objective room. You can't see it here, but Al-Jabel is down here in the corner. He doesn't react to anything that I'm doing since I'm in Eclipse anyway. And so my Kotile just runs up and presses the button, then moves out of the objective room again and deploys the box here. Don't be confused. This is a box. This is the the EM mine of my second Kaori. Oh, what I actually forgot to mention was while I was trying to get the console, my forward observer Kotile, which has a forward observer bonus, rolls his first 2 dice. Actually, a new dice set that I was using in this tournament. He rolls an 18 and a 19. I need a 16. And then he rolls again, and he rolls a 17 and a 20. And only on his 3rd attempt, he actually rolls a 3, which is pretty crazy. Anyway, after that actually happens, I then take my Sukyo sniper, and he actually draws line of fire all the way over there to this camo marker over here, which turns out to be the viral mine from the Farzan mine layer, who is in this corner over here, and shoots the viral mine, which then allows my Clipsos to reveal, walk up to the console, and roll a 17 and a 20. And then on her second attempt, she grabs the box. Then, as you can see here already, with my last orders, I run the Kaori up, and I take a shot at the Farzan over here, but the Farzan just lays a viral mine and actually survives. Then my last command token is actually spent on the Greif, who tries to activate. He's positioned right here, and he just activates and shoots at one of those camo markers, and then it turns out those are both EM mines, and he is isolated. And that ends my first turn. We go into the assassin's second turn, which is really kind of sad, because what happens is that his Mujib Haris just moves up and wants to basically kill my Clipsos forward observer, who did not go back into camouflage and is just standing in that corner up here. And basically all of his orders of his first group and this half-forgotten viral mine that the Farzan laid later, my Clipsos is still alive. Simon actually forgot about the viral mine all the while I was dodging here and only remembered it when my Kaori actually had to dodge. That would have changed a lot. If the viral mine had gone off against my Clipsos, the Clipsos most likely would have died and he would have had saved himself all the trouble of this turn. But we played it as it was. He forgot about it. It only went off against the Kaori, killing the Kaori. But that meant that in the end, for some incredible reason, I was still here. The Farzan was revealed. I was still alive. I cleared the Gulam NCO in ARO. Mimetism -6 and everything else. I made some crazy armor saves, and he had spent his entire turn just to kill the Clipsos, and the Clipsos was still standing. Actually, in the end, Laila Sharif is standing in this corner down here. The Mujib had moved a little bit further back. And so I go into my second turn. And the first thing I actually do, because of the way some of the pieces back here, the IR has moved, is that I take my Sukyo sniper and I move up here and take a shot against one of the decoys. I thought there was an emitter there or something. But it allows me to take my motorized bounty hunter and make a run up here towards this mess. And the motorized bounty hunter, when he moves past, this Shujay reveals and throws a Flamen Spear at him, but I make my dodge. And then the motorized bounty hunter just goes ham, and he kills the Farzan, he kills the Govat, he kills Layla Sharif, and actually at the end it's still standing. Then I take my isolated Greif and I actually try to kill one of his Barits, but that doesn't work. And then my Sukiul and Makaul duo, who are somewhere here, they make a run all the way around here until my Makaul ends up in CC with the viral marksman Lazik. I actually don't CC though. I put a heavy flamethrower over the IR and the Lazik, but unfortunately I only managed to put one wound on the IR. The Lazik survives, she makes her dodge, and my Makaul dies. And so with my last order left, the Sukiul, who stayed back a little bit, goes into suppression fire. Now, we are already in turn 3, and Simon only has the orders left to put his boxes into the safe zone. The safe zone is down here, pretty aggressively put. And since I have all of my arrows still here, my Sukiul sniper is still standing here, what he does is he just moves everything around this building and then just drops stuff in here. The Govat actually stays in there, and the Ayar goes on arrow position up here. And apart from that, the only other thing that happens is that he actually takes his Mutawiya and he moves him up this bridge into a more forward position, because basically the safe zone is right underneath him. And so if I were trying to get the box out of the safe zone, he would have his jammer here. By the way, this is a picture from the very beginning of the game. This is why Layla Sharif is still here. She's obviously dead by now. And then the last thing that he does is he brings in his Rajik from the side and actually manages to put the motorized bounty hunter unconscious, but he runs out of orders and he's not able to put the Clipsos unconscious. And so that allows me, in my last turn, to actually take my Sukiul sniper. I shoot the Rajik, I kill it, and that allows my Clipsos to move all the way up here, dodge, I think, the second Flamen Spear, if he actually still has one, from the Zhuzhe that comes down here, and then move all the way over here into my safe zone and drop the box off there. Incredible run from the Clipsos. It's unbelievable. Then my Sukiul that is up here tries to make a run, but I very quickly realize that she would get too many arrows from the IR and everything else. So instead, I take the Kotile, who is still at this corner, and he runs in here. He tanks the jammer. He tanks the Panzerfaust or light shotgun or whatever is left from the Dailami, who's over here, and the Shujay, who is over here, and makes a run across here where he's safe from all the other stuff, kills the Govat, and with the very last order manages to take the supply box and just drag it right out of the safe zone. And that, with a couple of very lucky dice rolls, manages to win me, I think it was an 8-3. I'm not exactly sure about the scoring anymore. But I have more boxes than him. I have more boxes in my safe zone. Since he only has one box left in his safe zone, I have 2. So I finished this game with a very big win, which made me very happy for this first game of the tournament. My second game was Infection versus Tartary Army Corps. And I played against Nick, also known as Bärtiger Stratege, which translates to bearded strategist, who seems to be quite the famous person in the community, but because I don't know anyone, this was the first time for me ever meeting this guy. Great guy, great game, had a lot of fun, and he's been a long-standing Ariadne player apparently, and so he brought Tug, and he brought this honestly really scary, almost full camo Tug list. As you can see, Spetsnaz camo, Spetsnaz parachutist, then 2 scouts, this one with the EM mine and a lieutenant, a Strelok forward observer, a Barsuk in his deployment zone, and then the first unit that you can actually see, a tractor mule, and then the second unit you can actually see a war corps. And then we go into group 2, and there's just more camouflage. Another Spetsnaz with heavy machine gun, another scout mine layer with EM mine, then one more unit that you can see, a dog warrior, and then another Strelok, 2 conductors, and a second tractor mule. That was pretty scary. You can see 3 Ochotniks, 2 heavy machine guns, 1 boarding shotgun plus 1 berth with mimetism and marksmanship, 2 Flammenspeers, just a lot of really scary stuff. He actually wins the lieutenant role, and we get to play on this gorgeous table up here. And so what he does is he takes second turn. He explained to me afterwards that this is something he likes to do with TAC. He just hard takes second turn, even if that allows me to give him, or like to make him deploy first. So he deploys first, goes seconds, just because he thinks that with all of this camouflage, it is incredibly hard for me to attack into him. So what we actually have here is we're looking at the table from the side, and I think the deployment zones are like this, and mine is like this. So basically, yeah, you can imagine he just deploys a bunch of camo markers. Here are his true tractor mules, here is the dog warrior, and then on this side we have the war corps and just a bunch of more camouflage markers. I'm not going to reveal everything that's underneath the camouflage markers yet, but as you can imagine, this little thing up here is a conductor. There's another conductor on the other side, and then just all kinds of mines and decoys and what have you. So I have first turn, and I have my Sukyul and Makaul and the Chaksa. The Sukyul and Makaul are here, and the Chaksa is just right here, ready to just make a run, be one of my infected troopers, and make a sensor over here, hopefully surviving to make a sensor run and then infect something. I have my Greif, reserve drops up here with the motorized bounty hunter. Maybe it's further up, so it can just run up here and infect the Greif or make an infection run itself. I have my Sukyul lieutenant here and my Sukyul sniper up here, having a line of sight over here and in here and over here, with the 2 Kailtas back here underneath that building. And then finally my Keryle is here with the Symbio Beast, and my Kotile, my other 2 Chaksa as a Kotile, are behind this blue box here. And so I start my turn, and my motorized bounty hunter makes the run. Actually, there's nothing here to aero, and it just infects the Greif, which is a mistake. I didn't even have to infect the Greif. It would just cost me another order to purge him again at the end of my turn, because the motorized bounty hunter actually infects the tractor mule and then makes a run up here, hoping to get some stuff revealed and maybe kill something. And actually the conductor up here reveals, and I think even the scout reveals, one of the scouts with a Ochotnik, and the motorized bounty hunter goes down, and I don't kill anything, which is kind of sad. With all of my orders in group 2 spent, I go into my group 1, and with his Flammenspeer conductor revealed, I actually move up my Sukyul and my Makaul, and they end up between these things, and I take a shot at the conductor and kill him. And that allows my Chaksa to make the run from here all the way over here. I actually have to dodge, I think, the Ochotnik once, but I managed the dodge. I make a sensor, so basically everything that's over here is revealed. And that turns out to be a scout up here and a Strelok back here. And you can already see here the Spetsnaz HMG has revealed, the Ochotnik has revealed, and the conductor is already unconscious. And I managed to infect the scout, and that means I have infected 2 troopers, which gives me a point. And then my Chaksa and my Greif purge themselves, so now my opponent has 2 infected troopers and I have 0, and he needs to infect 2 troopers. So in his first turn, his dog warrior, who's over here, activates and just spends his impetuous order and gets shot by the Greif and transforms. And I think that's actually all that happens in turn 1 with the dog warrior. Then the Spetsnaz HMG reveals and kills the Sukyul, and then the sniper kills my Makaul. Then he takes on my Sukyul sniper, and that doesn't go well for the scout sniper, and the scout sniper dies. And since everything around him is either dead because he also kills the Chaksa, the virus just jumps to his own Strelok. So now the Strelok behind the building is infected, which makes it even harder for him to move up and infect any of my units. And then the next thing that happens is that the Spetsnaz boarding shotgun comes in on the very side of the table. So he comes in here and he makes a run over here to have a face-to-face against my Takyu lieutenant, but that actually only manages to strip my Symbionate before the Sukyu sniper kills him. I do think that he makes his classified though, and that means that at the end of turn 1, I have infected 2 troopers and I have fewer infected than him. He only made his classified, he didn't infect 2 of my troopers, so we are at 2-1. So even though it is kind of going well for me, I, for some reason, panic. Mostly because I am not used to playing with chess clock, and I think that I have to be super fast, and so I just start my turn without thinking it through, and I just start spending orders in very unnecessary ways. So basically, the first thing I do is that my Clipsauce that's over here reveals and makes a classified against the unconscious Spetsnaz. And then my Takyu lieutenant makes a run with a lot of Eclipse all the way over here because I don't have any alive infected troopers anymore, right? All my infected troopers are dead. And I think she wants to make the run to his HVT, who is over here, and try to get herself infected on the way and then infect him. And I just run out of orders and it doesn't work. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? And then I finally start sitting down, thinking about it a little bit more, and I realize I have my quotile over here, and I have a lot more orders in group 1, and so the quotile jumps over here, and since there's a lot of Eclipse, and with a lot of dodging and some lucky rolls again, I actually end up just out of line of sight of the Ochotnik, who is, I think, here or somewhere, in base-to-base with his HVT. I infected myself on the unconscious Chaksa, and so I managed to infect the HVT, which gives me 1 point. And then I guess I purge the quotile. I don't manage to infect more than that. I only have my classified and I have this, but both of these give me 1 point, so I have 4 points now. And so in the Tartary Army Corps, second turn, the Dog Warrior actually jumps down here and goes into CC with the Greif, but nothing happens and he just leaves him there. Then the second Spetsnaz HMG, which is over here, walks over here and kills my Takyu lieutenant, who is stranded over here. Then the Ochotnik Scout, who is still over here, kills my quotile, and then again tries to kill my Sukyu sniper, but my Sukyu sniper remains unbeaten and kills the Ochotnik, just as he had killed the scout. Oh, that was not a scout sniper. That was also a scout with the Ochotnik. It was just a sniper model, but yeah. And so instead, he now finally takes his infected Strelok and he runs him over here and all the way over here and infects, I think, my Sukyul and my Makaul, or my Quotile and my Makaul, or something like that, then purges itself and makes another classified. Because the way infection works is you have 3 classifieds in total and you choose 1 per turn and you need to accomplish it during this turn. And if you don't, it's gone and you cannot accomplish it anymore. So Tak accomplished 1 in round 1 and 1 in round 2. I only managed to accomplish 1 in round 2. I had to forfeit in my first classified. And so at the end of turn 2, he infected 2 troopers and also another classified. So now we're at 4-3. However, going into my turn 3, I again have no alive infected troopers anymore. And so I need to make another huge track. And this time, the Quotile actually manages to run all the way over here, and my Surda Symbio Beast, and with another dodge, manages to infect itself on the unconscious Takyu, infect the Strelok over here, and I think I also infect the unconscious Scout over here. So again, I have infected 2 troopers, which gives me another point. And then I kind of leave it on ARO. The Kerile himself stays over here. In the end, the Surda Symbio Beast is disconnected, and I think it also goes unconscious with its last run. The Kerile is standing up below this bridge, together with my Sukyu sniper. I don't make my third classified either, and I pass turn. And so in his last turn, Nick actually has to, again, infect 2 troopers, infect himself as well, because now all of his infected are dead as well, and hopefully make another classified. He cannot do that classified anymore though, And so all that's left to do for him is to infect 2 of my troopers and make sure that I have more infected than him on the board. Because if he does that, then he will turn his 4-3 loss into a 5-4 win, I think. If he doesn't, though, I win. And so what he does is he uses his Spetsnaz HMG from over here, runs it into zone of control of my Kiril, and infect him. And then for some reason, I'm not sure, either the Spetsnaz dies and he has to take another piece, but actually, I'm not sure exactly anymore. But I know that the last interaction is that there's an infected unit here, goes over here. My Greif is still in CC with the Dog Warrior, right? And nothing has happened here. And so basically, he just tries to infect the Greif. He has 2 dice. He only manages to roll 1 hit. And so I have to make an armor save on PS4 with 0 BTS. And if I fail it, Tak wins 5-4, and if I make it, I win 6-4. And I roll a 1. And that is just incredibly lucky. There's no skill involved here. I just roll a 1 and I win 6-4. Incredibly close game, incredibly well played by Nick. I had a bunch of lucky rolls again, and in the end, it was this dice roll that actually won me the game. Anyway, now I have 2 wins under my belt, and both of them are major as well. And so now I go into round 3, which is highly classified. So I am rolling into highly classified, and I get to play on this amazing table that you can see on the screen right now. I just love this. It seems to be all 3D printed, and it just fits together so well in combination with the mat. It just looks like this industrial hub, factory, planet kind of thing. It's menacing, it's interesting, it's different from anything I've ever seen on an Infinity table, and I was just really curious to see how it would actually play. So, in this case, actually, the tournament organizers drew the 4 public classifieds for the entire tournament, and they were HVT Espionage, I think it's called, where a hacker has to make a whip roll against the enemy HVT. HVT Inoculation, where a paramedic, doctor, or engineer has to make a whip roll in base-to-base with the enemy HVT. Then Nano Espionage, again, paramedic, doctor, or engineer who has to shoot a medikit or a gizmo kit at an enemy specialist. And Predator. My secret classified was HVT Follow-Up, where a medium or heavy infantry has to make a whip roll against the enemy HVT in line of sight. So, as you can see, in my case, 3 out of 5 classifieds involved the enemy HVT. A 4th one involved my paramedic or engineer, who were probably close by to the HVT to do something with the specialist. So I just figured that the game would heavily center on our respective HVTs, and it would. My enemy was called Sven F, that's his handle, so his name was actually Sven, and he told me he would be playing Torchlight. Now, I had never played against Torchlight in N5 so far. I knew them from N4, I knew they had been a little bit nerfed, so I just thought, well, I'm Tohaa, I'm resilient, I guess it's fine. I'm a little bit scared possibly of Hippolyta because I don't really have anything that is as good as her in CC or can really deal with her mimetism -6, but otherwise I just didn't feel that bad when Sven won the lieutenant role and Snap picked first turn. I just gave him this deployment zone over here, I took this deployment zone over here, and then Sven deployed. He deployed not a lot of miniatures, and then at the end he just plopped 2 wreckers here. And he told me that both of them were the heavy rocket launcher +1 burst versions. The rest of the list is not that crazy or something. I tried to reconstruct it. It's one of the only lists that I didn't get. I know that there was Hippolyta, a Nimrod, and a Cludger Doctor, and a Horus. I know that there was at least 1 Strider. And I also know that there was another Cludger with Disco Baller, as well as 2 Raven Eyes. One of them was the Lieutenant. That means there are 27 points left to make this a limited insertion list. Although maybe he even had a Warcore in list 2 and it wasn't a limited insertion list. I'm not sure anymore. I'm not sure what the last mini was. Maybe it was another Strider. It never came into play. It doesn't matter because this game would be a Wrecker and Hippolyta game and nothing else. I then deployed on my side, and as you can see here, I basically deployed everything in this corner, almost as if it were provisioning or something. But the reason for that was that my enemy HVT was placed here. And so I figured, since I have to basically play the whole mission around this HVT, I should put everything that I have here. And then also because my enemy would have to do a lot of classifieds with my HVT, it didn't make sense to me to put it, I don't know, over here or something, because then I wouldn't be able to defend him. So instead, I put my HVT down here. This little Liberto proxy here is my HVT. And so I knew that basically the entire half over here would just not come into play. We would basically play this entire game on this side of the table, which was kind of sad because, like, look at the table, it's amazing. And I would have loved to play on all of it, but the way the mission played out meant that we were playing on this side. All right. Torchlight has turn 1, and basically all that Sven does is activate his duo of wreckers, and they just go to town. They come up here around this corner, and the first thing that they see is my Kozo wheel with the Panzerfaust on ARO. I think I actually gave him a symbiote, but it doesn't matter. In 1 or 2 orders, I think he just spent the 2 tactical orders. The Kozo wheel is dead. Then they move up, they move around here and take a shot against my sniper. Here, my Sukio sniper up on the roof. They force him prone. I think he takes a wound or maybe just loses his mate, but I don't want to lose him, so I put him prone. And that then allows him to just take his wreckers and put one of them up here, where he then subsequently gets line of sight to my Kalta, kills it. Gains line of sight to my War Driver, kills it. Gains line of sight to my Takiul chain of command, kills it. Gains line of sight to my Macau, kills it. And I think at that point he actually runs out of orders and he moves them back and they're just somewhere here. And I have lost so much. Like, I didn't win a single face-to-face roll. He just basically, with every single order, he killed a unit. And so I already knew that I would most likely just have one turn. I felt like I had nothing really left to contest those 2 wreckers, so I would probably be able to make some classifieds, and then the wreckers or Hippolyta would just finish the job and kill me completely off the board. And so, thinking that I only have one turn, I then try to make the best of it. I have my Takio lieutenant here, who I actually spent a command token on to put her in suppressive fire in turn 1. Didn't come into play. I just figured probably the wreckers would come around here, and I wanted to have another ARO piece here together with my Sukiul HMG, but that never happens. She's still alive, however, that's great. So she puts down Eclipse here, and then she puts down Eclipse here, and basically just blocks this path because there's still a wrecker over here, moves up here, risks whatever is underneath that marker that will turn out to be a Strider to go into zone of control of the HVT and do my personal classified follow-up, which already gives me 3 points. And since there is Eclipse down here now, that also allows me to take my now only duo. There was a Macau in here before, but now it's just the Sukiul and the Kamail hacker to also move up here, and my hacker to actually make HVT espionage, which gives me another point. And then at the end, they are just left over here. My Sukiul trying to block this line of path. I don't really have any orders left to move my hacker around, and so she just is left in the open. You can already see the Strider revealed, but didn't manage to kill anything. And here is still my Takiul. Well, this is what I guess happened. She took a wound from the Strider, but that was fine. That's my first turn, and that's all I managed to do with my orders. And then, as expected, we basically just play a second turn. And honestly, it's just Sven's second turn, because this little thing over here that you can see, that is Hippolyta and her team just move all the way around here and come around here. And since Hippolyta has stealth, she ignores the fact that my Sukiul, that is still standing over here, has the Symbio Bomb and could theoretically erasure her. And then she just comes around here and she goes into CC with my Sukiul and kills it. And then she goes into CC with my Takiul and kills it. And then the Cludger comes into base to base with the HVT and does a classified. He didn't bring a hacker, so he can't do another classified at this point, but this means he already made 2 out of the major classifieds. I think at some point, I don't know which it was, he makes his private classified as well. And then with the last orders, he takes the wrecker that was over here, moves him all the way up on this little strip on the roof where he can basically just look down here and protect this entire zone of the board. Actually, no, I forgot something, because what his wreckers also do is they come up here and they get another line of sight to my Tsukio sniper who had guts over here and kill it. And then they take another line of sight to a Chuksa or something. I know that in the end, the motorized bounty hunter dies as well. And as the motorized bounty hunter dies, I am now in retreat. He actually shot me in retreat in 2 turns. And so we asked the tournament organizer if I can still bring in my parachutist, even though I am in retreat, if my Gao Tarsos can come in with his own order. And they say yes, and I still have 1 command token left. So I figure I can just do a Hail Mary, bring in my Gao Tarsos here. I cannot bring him in further here because there's an EM mine from the Raven Eye. So I have to stay away from it, just come in here, risk all of the arrows that I will be getting from Hippolyta, from the Strider, from the Wrecker, and see if I survive. And if miraculously I should, I could then do 1 more classified, which is my paramedic doing a whip roll in zone of control of the enemy HVT. But of course, that never happens. I come on the board, the Wrecker shoots at me, and I die a horrible death in the flames of its burst 4 heavy rocket launcher. And so the game ends incredibly soon. It was the quickest game of the tournament, and it's my first loss. Torchlight wins 8-4, but I still have made 4 points, and that means that I have made another couple tournament points, which is nice. I honestly at this point breathe a sigh of relief because yes, this was brutal and I just got wrecked by wreckers. I got stomped into the dust by these 2 guys. Holy shit. Like they just, even with my symbiomates, I didn't stand a chance. Like I couldn't get any, I couldn't win any face-to-face roll and all my stuff just died. But with this loss, I can go into day 2 a little bit more relaxed because I don't have 3 wins now. I will be somewhere in the middle of the pack, probably facing off against someone who, is that I can deal with, and I don't have to go against the heavyweights, which I'm actually quite grateful for. And now we can relax. We enjoyed the rest of the day. There was some more events there. There was a War Crow table where some demos happened. And apparently it's a staple of the German Championship that in the evening of day 1, there is something called the Hunger Games, which is basically just 8 players, everyone against everyone on one table. And the last one standing wins. And you only have, I think, 75 points that you can bring. No tactical orders, no lieutenants. Or I don't know if there's tactical orders. I didn't play. I was done with Infinity for the day. I just relaxed, had some nice conversations, and we actually didn't go to bed too late because, in fact, we got to stay with the grandmother of a friend of ours, an incredibly hospitable and friendly 88-year-old woman who asked us to be at home no later than 11 p.m. So that's what we did, which had the benefit that I was neither hungover nor suffering from sleep deprivation when we rolled into day 2 and game 4. All right, it's day 2 and we are playing the 4th game of the tournament, which is Zone of Interest. I will not explain too much about this mission since you can read up all about it in the new ITS Season 17 mission set. But to just broadly explain how it works, there are 3 zones. The player who has first turn places 2 of them, a normal zone, which you can see here, which is blue, and a special zone, which is orange. The game has the same radial deployment zones as provisioning. In this case, the radial deployment zones are here and here, or rather here. Because yes, the zones of interest have to be outside of the deployment zone, just like in provisioning. And then the goal is to dominate the special zone at the end of the round. And there's also a console, which you can see right here in the middle. And the way this works is if you just go to the console and there's nothing and nothing else has happened yet, you just spend a short skill and activate the console. You usually just have to spend a short skill. You don't have to make a whip roll to press the button unless there is a hacker in any of the zones of the enemy. Then it turns into a face-to-face whip roll against the hacker. It switches from player to player. If your opponent doesn't press it in his turn, then obviously you don't have to press it again in your next turn. And then at the very end of the game, you also get points for dominating as many zones as possible. There is one classified. So this sounds really interesting. That's the mission I didn't get to test, but it sounded really straightforward. And so I was just rolling into it thinking, let's just see what happens. And so I got to play against Vombaticus and his Rama task force, which, if you have watched the other videos on this channel, made me incredibly happy because I play Rama Task Force as well. And I was really excited to see how someone else would play them. So on the screen right now, we can see the list as far as I remember it, because I do not have the list code for this list either. But if I remember correctly, this is the split between the two groups. I'm not sure if I'm 100% correct, but it doesn't really matter. The important things are there is a Namur Haris, or rather a Mukhtar Haris of 2 Mukhtars and a Namur Spitfire. The 2 Mukhtars are the Red Fury MSV2 and the Mukhtar Doctor. Then there is a Gulam Corps of Gulam Lieutenant and Decoy, a Zayadan Missile Launcher, and Valeria Gromos. So this is only a level 3 fire team. The Zayadan does not get +1 BS and also doesn't get 6 cents. There was a Rafik, there were 2 Fanus. I'm not sure if those were in group 1 or group 2, but I just put them in group 1 for now. And then I also know that there was a Tuareg Hacker, a Laila Sharif in a duo with a Gulam NCO, another little Gulam team here, and then a Shihab remote with Thunderbolt, and Carmen and Batar, which would be the reserve drop. What happens when we start the game is my opponent, actually, you can see this table now from my side. My opponent wins the lieutenant role and decides to take second turn. Just like Nick did in my second game, who played Tak, he just hard chooses second. I offer him to just take deployment because I knew that I would take first turn anyway, because the player who takes first turn gets to place the special zone of interest. And obviously, as you can see here, I would place the zone of interest as close to my deployment zone and as far away from the opponent as possible to make it as easy as possible for me to dominate it and as hard as possible for my opponent to dominate it. And yeah, he sticks to his plan though. He takes second turn, so obviously I choose deployment, I choose first turn. And so he has to deploy first, go second. I feel like this puts me in a major advantage, but he told me afterwards he was quite hungover, and that's part of the reason why he made that decision. I wasn't really, like, I still don't really understand why he did that in that mission. But in any case, so the way he deploys, he puts his Zayadan missile launcher down in this corner here, with the Gulam, one of the Gulams behind her, the other Gulam is down here. Valeria Gromos is prone on this bridge, and then we have a Fanus remote up here, the Rafik up or back here. We then have the total reaction bot up on this little canister container up here. You can see the Gulam NCO and Laila Sharif on this side. You can see the 2 Mukhtars and the Namur over there. And this is the second Fanus. I obviously don't know exactly where he puts his Tuareg. I assume he puts it pretty close to the console, so he can press the button and then just put him in a zone or something like that. But I don't know. So at this point, I just deploy my own stuff, and mostly the important things are explained from here. So the Takul and the Kozuil are here. There is one Chaksa misdeployed way back over here where I don't need him, and the other Chaksa actually ends up here. My war driver also ends up here, so I can put a hacker into this zone. And then my Sukiul and my Makaul, my second hacker, deploy here, so I can put the Makaul and the Kamail, that's its name, the Kamail hacker into this zone. Actually, these zones are, I took this picture before I finalized the placement. This orange zone would actually be even further closer to my deployment zone, somewhere here. This one would stay there. This one would probably, I think, move up a little bit further as well. And then I have my sniper and the Tohaa somewhat misdeployed here as well, because my thinking was that I would want to have a line of sight all the way with my sniper protecting this, but then in the end I ended up moving the zone further up, and my sniper, while he could see the table edge, he couldn't see really that far, and he also couldn't really see that far up here. I think he actually only managed to like see here and then see up here, and that would be relevant, but I could have placed him in a place where he would have much better lines of sight. In any case, we start the game. I have my first turn, and I realize that my Sukiul HMG who is behind this little box here, can either take a fight here against the Zaydan missile launcher, or I can take a fight here against his total reaction bot. And since the total reaction bot is actually on ARO towards the console here, I actually choose to go against the total reaction bot first, and I do that, and I just move up over here and take a shot and kill him in one order. I think I put him in unconscious level 2. And that allows my fire team, Taku, say the chain of command, and my Kozuil to put some eclipse here, because the Zaydan missile launcher is still able to look into here, through this little gap between buildings. And then I move my Kozuil into base to base with the console, and I just spend short skill and activate it. And then I move him back and put him on ARO, I think here, while my Takyul just moves into this corner and does nothing, and my War Driver moves here and is in cover, but not totally safe, but in the zone, so I have a hacker in the zone in case my opponent tries to activate the console in his turn. I then spent an irregular order on my delegate, who had deployed a little bit further back here, just at the edge of my deployment zone, to just move her up so she's in 8 inches off the console. Not the entire console, just the lower half, but it's better than nothing, and she is also protecting this area up on the bridge with her erasure. Finally, my Takyul lieutenant, who was deployed, I think, somewhere back here, she makes a run, and since I don't have really anything else to do, she just moves up. She puts Eclipse here as well, so I don't get flash pulsed by the flash pulse, and I try to end game Carmen and Batar, who were deployed really like back here. And I do the endgame once and nothing happens, and so in the end I just leave the Takyul in the corner and put her into suppression fire, which is something I like to do. And that's my turn. I haven't killed anything except for a total reaction bot, and I left quite a few stuff out there. So what happens now is that the Haris of Namur and Mukhtar, they activate, and they basically just move up over the bridge into line of sight to my Kozuil, and the Namur Spitfire rolls 6 dice against my Kozuil and kills it. Maybe I shouldn't leave the Kozuil with his Panzerfaust on ARO. So far he has never survived very long, but I also really didn't need it anymore, and I thought I could maybe stall my opponent's attack, but I didn't. The Kozuil just goes unconscious. So the next thing that happens is that the Gulam NCO, who has deployed over here, throws smoke between basically my Takyul chain of command and the bridge, and that allows the Haris of Namurs and Mukhtars to walk up the bridge, and the Mukhtar to take a shot against my War Driver and kill the War Driver. However, to get to my Takyul, he actually has to move up here, and this is already in zone of control of my delegate. He does it anyway. He takes the shot. He only puts 1 wound, I think, on my Takyul, and he gets isolated in return. And that really sucks for him. But at least he he does that, but he cannot keep shooting at my Takuel, and so instead he elects to make a run with Carmen and Batar, and they come around from back here and do a run here. And then I ask him what his plan is, if he just wants to kill me because I'm in smoke, and he's like, no, I'm going to press the console. And I'm like, you know, you need to be a specialist for that. And Carmen is not a specialist. And he's like, oh, yeah, shoot. Right. So he just actually leaves her there because he doesn't want to risk going into CC for some reason. And that's kind of it. I know that Valeria also tries to spotlight my Takuel. Like, she's over here, my Takuel is over there, but it just doesn't get off. She already tried to do it in ARO when I moved my Takuel up there because he's in zone of control of the Flash Pulse remote. And now she tries in an active. It also doesn't work. And so finally, the Namor just moves a little bit further up and takes a shot against my sniper down here, believing that since Namor have immunity enhanced, he is immune to my erasure. And I mistakenly believe him as well. I apparently don't know my Tohaa as well as I should, because erasure is a comms attack and immunity enhanced does not protect against comms attacks. So I would have been able to erasure him as well, but we play it as if I couldn't, and so he can safely take a shot against my sniper, make a wound, and my sniper goes prone behind the building. That's all he can do. And so the whole Horus is basically, it's left up here, and Carmen and Batar are left down here, and I go into my second turn having lost only the Kozuil and the War Driver, and that means that I can now do an attack run myself. And so the first thing I do is actually I take my Takuel lieutenant, who is safe back here, and she just decides to go on a rampage. She comes out of suppression fire, and she pops around this corner. And as you can see, there's a second Flash Pulse bot here. She just pops around here, shoots the Flash Pulse bot goes unconscious. She comes around this corner even more. This is where the Gulam NCO is standing. Shoot the Gulam NCO, goes unconscious as well. Then she comes even further, gets a line of sight over here where there's a Rafik remote, shoots the Rafik, kills it as well. And finally, she goes all the way over here where there's Laila Sharif, who has dropped prone in the meantime, and I basically just stand right in front of her and shoot her in the face, but nothing happens. Ignore the unconscious marker here. That picture is taken from later in the game, but at this point, nothing happens, and so I just leave her there. None of us want to go into CC, but we're basically just staring each other in the eyes. That's my group 2, and my group 1, it's now the Sukiel's time as well. Again, the Sukiel HMG this time decides to take another shot, this time against the Sayadam missile launcher, and in I think 1 or 2 orders I put her unconscious. And then since the Namor is standing up here, I also take a shot against the Namor and put the Namor unconscious. And that allows me as well to move my Makaul and my Ka Eltar into this zone so that they can dominate the zone, since there's really not much left that can threaten them in this zone now. I completely forgot to do this in my first turn, which was stupid, and I forfeited basically 1 point. My opponent also wasn't able to get to the zone, but since you get a point for dominating the special zone every round, I could have made this point in the first round, but I just simply forgot to do that. Basically, the rest of my orders are also just spent putting the Takuel and the Chaksa into this zone as well, and so I dominate this zone for now as well. I now also, again, since my Kamael hacker is in the zone, I contest. But if my opponent were trying to press the button this turn, I would contest it again, since I have another hacker in the zone. And I'm really wondering at this point when he's going to bring out what I assume is a Tuareg hacker. He could have brought a Nahab as well, but he pretty much told me in the beginning of the game that he wasn't bringing one, so I just expected a Tuareg. But so far, nothing happens. This means I'm passing turn, and my opponent gets his second turn. He is hemorrhaging orders a lot, though, and there's not a lot that he can do. His Mukhtar is isolated, his Namur is unconscious, so all he basically can do is take his second Mukhtar, his Mukhtar Doctor, and move him prone so he can't be seen by anyone else into base to base with the Namur, get the Namur back up, but then the second Mukhtar gets isolated as well. My delegate really is the MVP of this game. However, the Namur is standing up again, and he takes another shot, I think against my Sukiel HMG, And I think he goes unconscious again in either an ARO or I do it in my last turn. Basically, the entire rest of his orders in his second turn, in his group 1, is spent again on Valeria Gromos, desperately trying to spotlight my Takiul and just failing one order after the other. It's either that she only gets one through and I make her save, or she fails both her rolls, or I make both my saves. It just, for some reason, she just cannot crack my BT 6 on my Takiul Lieutenant. He even moves a Fanu's remote into zone of control so she can do it again. And I think only after like the 6th order or something, I finally roll a 15 and she gets her classified, which is also the only point that, spoiler alert, my opponent is going to make this game. And with all of those orders spent and nothing else to do and nothing that he can use to shoot me anymore, he just passes turn again. And so it's my last turn, and I also don't really have anything left to do apart from bringing my Garo Tarsos in here, moving up to this building, doing sabotage, and then moving him further, or her further up here. So she ends up in this zone here, so that at the end of the game, I just control 3 zones. There's really not much to do for my opponent anymore. He reveals that his Tuareg hacker was actually deployed right inside my zone of the special zone of interest in here. And I was like, but that's in my half of the table. Like, did you do an infiltration roll? And he's like, oh crap, no, I completely forgot that I would have to do this. So I was like, you know what? Let's just like, if he's in there, you could reveal him. He would probably die because there's a Makaul with a heavy flamethrower here, and like there's just 2 units here that will probably kill him. But you could try. But we just roll for the over infiltration, and he fails, and so this never happened either. But that means my opponent never took the console from me in all 3 turns. He never scored the special zone of interest in any of the turns, and in the end, I score all 3 zones, and that means that I have another 9-1 win, which is amazing. I now have 3 out of 4 games with a win, and a big win at that. And so I am very, very relaxed going into my last game, which will be Supremacy. And what a game it will be. For Supremacy, I got to play against Gizmo9211, aka Dennis, who was playing White Company. Another faction I hadn't played against in N5. I have played it just a little bit myself, and I am planning on playing it. And so I was also very curious as to what kind of White Company I would be facing. I was honestly a little bit scared because the one thing Tohaa doesn't really have right now is good close combat, and White Company has tremendous close combat. So I was expecting to face either Shona or Valkyrie or Liang Kai or Carmen or any combination thereof. And if there had been a plan for a really good Alpha Strike, I really would have had to rely on Fairware or my very lame Macau. But the list that I was actually going to play against was something very different. Dennis was so kind to send me his list code as well. And you can see the big thing for this list is 2 Karhu Feuerbach. We have a Karhu Paris in group 1 of the Feuerbach, the paramedic, and the Haidao killer hacker. And then we have a duo in group 2 of just another Feuerbach and another paramedic. There's a core of 3 Fusiliers, Lieutenant, Forward Observer, Hacker, then Hawkwood, one of the best aero pieces in the game, and Lakshmi as a second hacker. We have 2 Beast Hunters, which will be relevant because I did not expect that. It would be to my advantage that I didn't expect that. And then just, the standard stuff. A Mulebot to reload the pitchers, and then 2 Varangians. All in all, I felt like, apart from the 2 Karhu Feuerbach, which of course can be terrifying, I felt like, especially when, like in the close assault department, it was a relatively tame list. But I didn't know that because I won the lieutenant role again. I think I won 2 out of 5 lieutenant roles in this tournament. And I just take deployment. its supremacy. There is a strong second player advantage. I am playing Tohaa, which is by itself another strong second player advantage. And it's something that my opponent definitely didn't like, because he hems and haws and was actually at one point deciding to just take second turn, which would be hilarious, because then I would have had 3 games in this tournament of my opponent's taken second turn while also deploying second. But in the end, he just takes first turn. So the way he deploys, this is the table from the side. So I actually take this deployment zone that ends right here. Those plates that you can see are actually perfect 12-inch plates. So it's really easy on this table to see where your deployment zone ends. And I just figured that I have better lines of sight to the objectives, which are here, and one is here, and one is here, and the last one is here. And I also figured that I will have a better overview over the table because I have those high buildings, this one and this one, in here. The way Dennis deploys is by placing the first Karhu over here with the paramedic behind, and the Karhu Haris down here with the Karhu Feuerbach in the very back as well. The 3 Fusiliers and Lakshmi are deployed here on the bottom, and Hawkwood is right here next to a ladder that will go down on this side of the building, so he can join the fire team should it move up. And then we have 1 Beast Hunter up here. There's a Varangian here and a Varangian here on the ground. And that's mostly, those are the important pieces of his deployment. As for my deployment, I have my sniper. I find this spot for my Sukiul sniper where he is, or only really able to be seen by the Karhu Feuerbach from the Haris on this side of the table, and not by the Karhu or Hawkwood on the other side of the table, because I want to kind of choose my engagement. I don't want him to just freely shoot at the Sukiul with whatever piece he likes most, which means that I am giving up the board a little bit, but I also see that his other Feuerbach and Hawkwood are on the roof up there and they can't really see anything, so they would have to move up to take engagements, and I want him to just waste orders. The Kaltars are up here and down here. You can also already see a Chaksa here. You can see the motorized bounty hunter here. And then the bulk of my other force is all on the other side of the table, with a special care taken to place my hackers as far back as possible, because the other thing that I fear is him just doing a picture play with Lakshmi or the Haidao and just killing my hackers, taking those specialist bonuses from me with which I want to press the buttons. And so the Haris of the Sukiul and the Macau and the Kama Il Hacker are here with the Kama Il Hacker as far back as possible, while still theoretically being able to move out here. And the other duo of the Takiul and the Kozuil up here, with the Takiul projecting Ferroware all the way up to this objective. Here you can already see my reserve, that is my delegate, also projecting Eraser to this objective. And then my other hacker, my War Driver, all the way back here, also as safe as possible, while also being able, hopefully, to move out here and press the button in my turn. There's a second Chaksa here, and as you can see, basically this whole thing is sort of a Fort Kick-Ass, because I saw those other 2 Varangians on the other side, but it was pretty obvious that they were not inside of 8 inches, and that meant that one of them would be open for a duo with, for example, Shona Carano. And I was very scared of something like Shona Carano just running into my deployment zone and just hacking everything to bits. And so there is a flamethrower here, there's a flamethrower from the Macau here, there is ferroware everywhere, just so that if something moves up here, it can be isolated, it can be templated, and it really doesn't want to make that run. However, as it turns out, the second reserve of my opponent is the second Beast Hunter. And that actually makes me breathe a sigh of relief. I think it's deployed somewhere here, because 2 Beast Hunters I feel is something I can handle. I wouldn't have how to handle something like Liang Kai or Shona Carano. Anyway, we go into turn 1. I dock him an order from every group, and Dennis starts by just safely using Impetuous on his Varangians, one of them moving up here, the other one moving up here, just moving forward. He then takes his core of Lakshmi and the Fusiliers and Hawkwood, and Hawkwood walks down the building, and the Fusiliers and Lakshmi walk all the way over here and up those stairs and up here, and Lakshmi presses the button and activates the console That's very fine. He then switches to his Feuerbach Harris that can, at some point at least, or take a shot against my Sukyo sniper, not at the spot that they are starting out from. And so they just move up. The Feuerbach actually moves back here and climbs up this building in order to end up on this building on the very far edge up here. It's a little bit blurry here now, but he can then take a shot against my Sukyo sniper. He lands 2 shots, but my Simumate holds and I just lose the Simumate, and so I drop prone because after that I will not risk more shots from a Feuerbach with burst 3.5. That means that my ARO pieces are gone and then he can just move a little bit further up. That means he is able to activate his core again and try to get a line of fire with Hawkwood to my Ka-Altar on the roof. He actually tries to move Hawkwood up here, but it turns out as soon as he would come over this ledge, he would get an ARO from my Sukyo HMG down here, and he doesn't want that. And so instead he just moves up here and leaves Hawkwood in an ARO position here. I cannot see him yet, but as soon as my Sukyo HMG were to stand up, I would be able to see him. Finally, he repositions his 2 Beast Hunters. You can already see one down here who has moved up from here, and the other one has moved up from here from the console into this direction. Then he passes turn. I haven't lost a single piece, and all he has done is press the console. That means I have all of my pieces to dislodge everything that he has put up. The first thing I can do is actually take my Motorized Bounty Hunter from back here and impetuous her safely up there. Then my Sukyo stands up. You can see the Motorized Bounty Hunter here, but she has already moved further over there, and she just stands up, and from where she stands, like I said, she has line of sight to Hawkwood, and 2 firefights later, Hawkwood is dead. Then my Motorized Bounty Hunter comes around and moves first up here, and you can see already from this marker, I have a shootout with the Varangian here, and I'm able to put the Varangian dogget. And then the Motorized Bounty Hunter drives all the way around here and comes up these stairs and tries to engage his core over here. But unfortunately, that doesn't work. And instead, the Motorized Bounty Hunter dies to ARO fire. Everything else here survives. I then go back into my group 1, play it a little bit more safely, and put Eclipse with my Takul on this objective, so the Beast Hunter and the Forward Observer up there cannot see in there. Then my War Driver comes up from back there, moves up to the console, presses the button, and moves back into relative safety here. You can already see here down here again where she ends up. My Sukyo HMG then goes up here and does a Discover Shoot against the Beast Hunter, and I manage to put her unconscious, while the rest of the Link, the Macau and the Kamael Hacker, they move around a little bit further back here, so my Kamael Hacker can make a run to this console on the roof in my second turn. Lastly, with the coordinated orders, both my Chaksa make a move up. You could already see the other Chaksa in the previous image next to the console on the left, and the other one up here next to the console on the right to protect my Takyu lieutenant, who had run up here for some reason. I don't remember exactly which one, possibly to throw Eclipse in case I wanted to make a run with my Kamael Hacker, but that never happened. So she just ends up here. That means that at the end of turn 1, we both score 1 point. We have the same number of quadrants. Dennis controls the 2 quadrants on his side. I control the 2 quadrants on my side. Fairly standard result for first turn of Supremacy. But Dennis goes into his second turn with a bit more attrition than me. He has lost John Hawkwood. He has lost a Beast Hunter. He actually also has lost 1 Varangian Guard. She goes from dogged to dead. And so with the slightly reduced order pool, he starts his second turn. He decides that with my Chaksa out in the open, it's actually quite easy for him to get rid of him with his Feuerbach. And so he takes his Horus, and this Feuerbach Kahu climbs around the wall here and then gets a shot against my Chaksa here. In theory, that should be a very quick kill. However, I crit my dodge, and he has to actually move the rest of his fire team up here to get a second shot. While he is doing that, however, the paramedic walks up here and shoots a medikit against the unconscious Beast Hunter, hits, and the Beast Hunter stands back up. And that allows him to bring the Horus over this bridge up here and around this building on this side and take a shot against the Chaksa from there, put the Chaksa unconscious, and then put the Takyu lieutenant unconscious. On the other side, he's more successful with his Forward Observer Fusilier, who just pops out there from the door and takes a shot against my Chaksa over here, puts him unconscious. and then activate his Kahu team on this side of the table. This is a picture from the beginning of the game. That's why John Hawkwood is still over here. And jump over to this building. There are no arrows yet. And then from there, from this corner up here, take a firefight against my Sukiul HMG. He manages to strip the Symbiote, but he doesn't kill him, and that is actually the last order in his first combat group, so I am still alive. That means he has to go back into his second order group and try to finish the job with his second Beast Hunter, who comes from around here, over here, and puts a flamethrower over me. But I actually make my dodge again, while the Beast Hunter dies to the endgame from my Takul from over here. That means that I go into my second turn only having lost my 2 Chaksa and my Takul, and I actually make a mistake here. Because while I remember to make the regeneration for my Takul, and I actually pass, I nonetheless play my turn as if she had died and had given her lieutenant order to one of my chain of command models. In this case, my Kaalta chain of command, who is back on this bottom of the table. And that means he moves out of the fire team until he's out of coherency, then spends the lieutenant order to walk up here and shoot the Kahu in the back. You can see that his line of fire is actually away from me, and he fails his dodge while I'm inside of 8 inches. And that allows me to just shoot him in the back and put him unconscious. Proving once again that all you need is a good old combi rifle with no visual modifiers if you're lucky enough to put something down. Then I bring in the Gao Tarsus from the other side of the building, who jumps up here, takes a shot against the paramedic, and puts her unconscious as well. And that means there's only the Haidao left here in the middle between those two. And I try to shoot him as well, once with the Kaaltar, that doesn't work, and then with the Gao Tarsus, which is unfortunately a mistake because the Gao Tarsus already took a wound from the Haidao the first time she did this, and now she tries it again, hoping that her burst 2 against his burst 1 will suffice, but it doesn't. He hits again, I fail my save again, and go unconscious. That is kind of bad because the Gao Tarsus was in his quadrant and I would have dominated that quadrant otherwise, and so I have to try and do this with other means. The way I do this is I go back into my group 1 and just activate the Sukiul, and now I have the dice in my advantage, and this Kahu doesn't have a Symbiote and doesn't have 2 wounds, and so with 1 order I put him unconscious. And while she's doing that, the Kama Ilheka comes around here. I think there's a ladder or something, climbs up here and walks to this console. I actually think there has been some eclipse put down from my Takyu lieutenant to make this as safe as possible, but that works, and now I have 2 pressed consoles, and it actually turns out that I dominate more quadrants than him, simply because everything on this side of the table, this quadrant, has moved up here, and then subsequently either died or stayed here. So there is nothing left in this quadrant, which means that I have more points in this quadrant, and I have more points in this quadrant, and he only dominates this quadrant, which means I actually get 2 points this turn, which puts the score at 4-2 because the paramedic shot to the Beast Hunter was also his classified. So he has a 2nd point for his classified as well. We go into the last turn of Dennis's White Company, and trying to salvage as much as possible, most notably his link down here. He successfully drops 2 speedballs, a Vita Pack down here, and I'm not exactly sure what the second thing rolled. It wasn't really relevant. But then he activates the Haidao, picks up the speedball, and moves over to his Karu. However, instead of simply applying the speedball and taking a free shot from my Kaalta, who is still over here, he decides to first get rid of the Kaalta and take a shootout against him. He has a burst 3 boarding shotgun. I have just 1 dice with my combi rifle, but unfortunately I either crit or I just win the face-to-face, and the Haidao fails his save and goes all the way to dead. He was already in NWI before, and that means that he neither has brought up his Feuerbach Kahu, nor has he saved his Haidao, and that means that everything over here is dead, which is really bad for him, and that kind of already decides the game. He is a little bit more successful on the other side of the board with his second paramedic, who manages to bring up his Kahu here, who promptly spends 2 more orders shooting my Sukiul HMG, who doesn't have a Symbiote anymore at this point. But his bad luck continues, and the first face-to-face is inconclusive, and the second face-to-face he lands 2 hits, which means I have to make 4 armor saves, and out of those 4 armor saves with just armor 2, no Symbiote, I still make 3 of them, and that means I still have 1 wound. I'm able to guts into cover and out of line of sight. That means his second reanimated Beast Hunter has to finish the job, and she comes over here, puts a heavy flamethrower over the Takul, and finally finishes the job. The last of his orders are then spent on the remaining Fireteam Corps from over here, and he moves his Fusiliers up and Lakshmi down into... His Fusiliers actually come around here and end up on this bridge in a neat little row, while Lakshmi, with the last order, moves down here, risks the endgame from my Takul, the Oblivion from the War Driver, and the Erasure from my Delegate. It's his last order, he doesn't care, and just presses the button. She's a hacker, she's 2 dice on 17s, and he repeats what I did in my very first order of this tournament in my first game, and he rolls an 18 and a 19. So this last turn was just very unlucky for him. He lost his Haidao, he wasn't able to bring back his Karhu, the Karhu up here wasn't able to kill my Sukiul, the Beast Hunter actually was, but then he even fails to press the second button, so he only has 1 console, he only has left his Fusiliers here in ARO, his Karhu up here in ARO, and I still have a lot of pieces, and I don't really actually have to do anything, but I think I do. Because as it stands now, with my Takyu chain of command and everything else up here, I am just outside my deployment zone, and I would have easily more points than him in this quadrant, especially if I bring the Kozuil up here as well. While my Sukiul HMG is dead, the Makaul is still alive, and I dominate this quadrant simply because my Takul is still alive and I'm just outscoring his Beast Hunter there. But for some reason, I don't realize that, and I think I have to score this quadrant back here as well. And so I actually spent a lot of orders in my last turn, bringing my Takul chain of command over here, put down the Beast Hunter with my Viral Rifle. Yay, I get to use the Viral Rifle. I think it's the only time in the entire game that I do that. Throw some Eclipse up here to block line of sight from the Kahu. Then my Taki Lieutenant throws some Eclipse as well, only to walk around here and with her last order realize that she has to run out of Eclipse to get into this quadrant, risk a shot from the Kahu, and just hope to survive. The Kahu hits, I fail both my saves, or just like one, she only has 1 wound left, and I go unconscious again. And then the dust settles, and Dennis asks me, why did you do that? And I was like, well, because I tried to score that quadrant. And he says, you already score more quadrants than me. And only then I realized, yes, he's right. I already score more quadrants than him. So I get another 2 points. I get 2 points for the 2 consoles that I pressed, and he gets 1 more point for the 1 console he pressed. And that puts the final score at 8-3 for my last game of this tournament, meaning I have 4 wins and just 1 loss, and those 4 wins were all major wins. And that means we have arrived at the end of this video and the end of the championship. While I am packing up my stuff and trying to breathe out all the adrenaline from this last game, have my friend Firas come over, who points out to me that with a score that high, I am most likely in the top 10 and might even score higher than that. But I am utterly unprepared for when they announce that I actually place 5th. I had not expected that at all. But to my great surprise, I was in the top 5 with Tohaa, which made me incredibly happy. I think it's a testament to Tohaa, but mostly it's a testament to DICE. Because was I happy about getting 5th place? Yes, of course. But did I feel like I had earned it? Not at all, to be honest. With all the mistakes that I knew I had made during my games, as well as some of the ridiculous luck I had with my dice, I just felt that the result was more a reflection of what Firas likes to say about Infinity, that it's a game of chess with a thick, juicy layer of randomness on top. I think it's mostly that randomness that allowed me to place this high. There were so many moments during those 5 games where a single dice roll would have changed the entire outcome of the game, or where my opponents just had terrible strings of bad luck, spending way too many orders on something that theoretically should have taken them 1 or at most 2 orders, while I was able to just get rid of stuff in 1 order or 2. Yes, I had a couple of moments as well. The first game where I managed to roll 3 times over my target number with 2 dice. That happens, but apart from that, I just felt like I had a lot of good luck. Still, I know that's the nature of a tabletop wargame like Infinity, so I will stop my grumbling and just be grateful for everything that happened. In the end, I simply had a blast. All my 5 opponents were super friendly, very competent players. I got to play on some gorgeous tables, and I was even lucky enough to be awarded both Best Painted and Best Conversion for my minis. So all in all, it was a great weekend, and I hope I can go again next year. Until then, those of you who went to the German Championship as well, let me know what you thought of the tournament. And everyone else, thank you for watching. Let me know what you think of this end result, if you found any glaring mistakes that I failed to mention, or any other observations you have. Thank you for sticking around for this long, and I will see you next time, probably with a little battle report. This time, not Tohaa anymore. If everything goes right, I will be able to play White Company myself for the first time in a long time with a full 300-point force. Look forward to that, and otherwise, I just wish you all the best. Bye-bye.